Guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk a little bit about this story that I heard concerning a member of the Central Park Five, aka the Exonerated Five, the group of five young teens that were falsely convicted of sexual assault, aka ape, in 1989 at the hands of the New York City Police Department, but years later were discovered that they were innocent. The victim was Trisha Miley, and she was brutally assaulted in Central Park in 1989. And in 2002, the actual um, assaulter, Mateus Reyes, came through, and he admitted that he was indeed the one that did that sexually assaulted Mrs. Miley, and then they did a DNA test to find out if it were true, and it was true. And one of them, Yusef Salaam, is now a Harlem City Council member. He uh, he beat out Inez Dickinson, who has been the former Harlem City Council member working for Mayor Adams for the longest. And when he beat her out with 50% of the vote, he, of course, before his conviction, his false conviction, he was a Harlem resident. And his life was brilliantly portrayed in the movie, the 2019 movie, When They See Us. He's now the first Muslim American to be elected to this high position, and congratulations to him. It was a long road for these young men. If you have never seen that film, When They See Us, watch it. And also, I recommend too watching the documentary, uh, the documentary on them that was produced by Ken Burns a couple of years before that. I think like in 2016, 2017, on this case. I was too young to remember this case, but apparently my mom remembered it when we were watching the movie, and she said that yeah, it was a big media circus. It was such a big media circus that Donald Trump, who at that time, this was before The Apprentice, this was before he was in politics, this was before he um, was in the WWE or anything like that. He was just a uh, real estate mogul owning hotels, just a mega rich guy. And he had put out a paper in the ad calling for yeah, Lisa says, you know, Trump's mad, for the reinstatement of the death penalty, which the death penalty hasn't existed in New York since the mid 1970s. That's when they got rid of the death penalty. But here in '89, he was calling for the death penalty for these five young men. And like I said, he wasn't a media celebrity at that time, but he was very influential in New York, owning hotels and shit. So he had a lot of pull and a lot of say, and he was going all over the news, calling them animals, calling them apist and things like that, really saying that they really did it. The way this woman was brutally attacked by Mateus Reyes, the real culprit, was brutal, though. I mean, she had a stone, uh, a rock bashed in her head. She was brutally not just sexually assaulted, but even murdered. They took a, not they, he, the guy took a rock and brutally beat her over the head with it, which is why, as they show in the movie, she couldn't remember who the attackers really were. It wasn't a case um, like Emmett Till where she was lying. She actually couldn't really remember who the attackers were, and they needed somebody to they needed somebody to lock up because they really didn't have any leads. And as we saw in the movie, the kids were out there and they were, uh, they were just having fun in Central Park. some of them were doing bad things, and others of them were doing, just regular things. And the media made it a thing where they were wiling out. This is the word that became the phrase de jour, wilding. And the media went all around, and they would ask people, you know, young people, what does this term wilding means? There's videos of it on YouTube, and the word wilding all of a sudden became this calling card that this is something that every all African American teens do, and African American teens and Latino teens, Black and brown teens are a complete danger to society because they're out here wilding on innocent white women. This became the narrative all throughout New York City, and unfortunately for these young men, there was no DNA at that time. And if there was, they didn't do it properly. They just needed somebody to pin it on because it made the city look bad. Here's this high profile case, and you don't have any leads, you don't have any suspects, nothing. So they rounded up just five random young kids and put them in jail and said that they were the ones that did it. And even, you know, if you there's videos of it on YouTube. They're interrogation videos, particularly Corey Wise. Corey Wise, of course, was best friends with Yusef, but he's the one that sticks out to a lot of people because he was in there the longest, and he wasn't even. And the thing about him is he wasn't even at the he wasn't even at Central Park at that time. He had gone along with Yusef when they rounded Yusef up at the police station. And Corey even says it, I didn't want Yusef to go alone because I was taught you never leave a friend behind. So when they took him to the police station, I went with them too. And they needed a fifth kid, so they just blamed it on Corey. And what they did, the police, was they starved the kids. They had them stay up for days. They shouted at them. They assaulted them, and they got false confessions from them. You know that they actually did it because these kids just wanted to go home to their families. And in one case, the kid Atron, his father, played by Michael K. Williams in the Netflix movie, told him, tell the police what they want to hear. But he's saying to him, Dad, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. You know what I mean? I didn't. I was there, but I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And he's telling him, listen, cooperate with the police, and you'll be able to go home because that's what the police told him. Just cooperate. Just go along with the flow. Another kid's family, the Hispanic kid Santana, they took his grandmother there, and his grandmother didn't speak no English, you know, and they coerced her to coerce him out of a confession out of him, and with Corey, uh, Yusuf's best friend, he had kind of like a mental disability, like a little bit, I mean, a kind of a speech impediment, and he had a lot of home problems, with his mom, particularly because his sister was a trans woman. So he had a lot of home problems, and they coerced the confession out of him. You could see it if you guys go and watch these confessions. I think Vlad posted them when the movie first came out. Um, and you could see the prosecutor coaxing them into giving these confessions. And it came out later that the prosecutor, the woman that did it, was a fiction writer, a crime fiction writer. So she made this shit up all in their heads. Her all in her head. She had an elaborate story of how they actually orchestrated all of this. That Yusef was the one that held her down. Corey put bashed her head over with the rock and everything, and it was like it was all in her brain. Each kid did this. Each kid did these things, and it was turned out there was only one guy, and it wasn't until later in prison that the actual guy who Corey Wise had gotten into a fight with over the TV years before confessed, and he said he became a Christian, right? And he confessed that he was the one. It was laying heavily on his heart. This guy Mateus Reyes, he confessed that he was the one. Yeah, I was the one that really sexually assaulted Trisha Miley, and I got away with it. you know, all for. Not only was he a complete sicko, but another reason that he had done it was that he wanted her Walkman at the time. Walkmans were a new technology, so he claimed that that was one of the reasons uh, why he did it. But it was in actual, yeah. Lisa is saying the names. I forgot the names. So thank you, Lisa. Corey Wise, Antron McCray, Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, and Yusef Salaam. So it was Antron McCray who the father actually uh, told them, listen, tell them what they want to hear, which is crazy because ain't no way I'm gonna tell my son to confess to a ape charge if he didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? But it just goes to show how uh, police manipulate and police intimidate in communities of color, and how somebody like Donald Trump, with his influence, could uh, could influence the public opinion of the people. Because we all hate Trump now in New York, but like I was saying, at one time before he got into politics, he was a very influential figure, especially within local politics, and his stance on it influenced a lot of people. And plus, because um, you know they had these false confessions on tape. If they'd have never falsely confessed, then maybe they still would have accused him, but they wouldn't have had as much evidence on it. At that time, they didn't have DNA evidence. All they had was their confessions. The fact that they confessed to it made people think that they did it. You know what I mean? Even though, see, Yusuf was one of the wiser ones because Yusuf's family was already members, um, I think either members of the Nation of Islam or Orthodox Muslim, heavily tied in with the Muslim community at that time. And we know that the Muslim community is always, the Black Muslim community is always on the lookout for these sort of racial conspiracy things that are a lot more politically conscious and politically aware of some of these shenanigans that go on with these white supremacist racist cops just because of their political stances within the Nation of Islam. So, with that said, his parents already equipped him with the know how and how the system was really going to do him, unlike a lot of these other kids who came in uh, really naive. And that's what this article that Lisa sent me mentioned, that he was already a smart kid. He was one of the smartest out of all of them, and because of his family background, he already knew what was up. And because of his faith, and it shows it in the movie, because of his Islamic faith, he was able to survive uh, prison somewhat mentally intact, more so than some of the other boys. You know what I mean? Especially uh, Corey Wise, his best friend, who had Wise had the worst time out of all of them. Not only was I think he was the youngest, but also because of his size, and also because of his stutter and his slow speech. You know what I mean? They took advantage of him, and they in jail they didn't for these kids they didn't have no mercy on them either, because the people in the jail believed that they did it. And we often talk about, like when we talked about with regards to like R. Kelly, people that actually are sexual predators in prison, they have it very bad because other prisoners ostracize them, other prisoners punish them, other prisoners beat them up. And that they show in this movie. That the prisoners themselves, the people on Rikers Island and shit, they believed it too. You know what I mean? They believed that these boys actually did what they did. And these are just young boys, young impressionable teens. Like I said, Yusuf was a little older and stuff, but they still was like between the ages of like 13 to 17, 18 years old, all these kids. And the way they were punished, man, if you watch this movie, it stars John Leguizamo, uh, Josh Jackson. You watch When They See Us on Netflix, man, you'll cry, especially in Corey Wise's story. My mom and I watched it so many times, and each time it made us tear up because that could be anybody's son. You know what I'm saying? If you got a son and you're a person of color, black or Latino in this city, that can happen to you. That could still happen to your son because all it takes is somebody to put a false ape charge on them, a false sexual assault charge, and he could be behind bars. And not only will the system believe it, but the other prisoners may believe it as well. So their story is a cautionary tale. And I like how uh, Dr. Salaam, and yes, I know in the article they say, well, he is not a real doctor, but whatever. What this man has been through is is hell. So if he says he's a doctor, fuck it, he's a doctor. And then they want to pin things on him like a conspiracy of friendship, apparently with one of the co-conspirators of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. And I know they're referring to his imam, uh, Imam Siraj Wahaj in Brooklyn, because that man was my imam as well, and that man is innocent too. So the Post still trying to put a slant on Yusuf Salaam, but anyway, um, it's a cautionary tale with these boys because before you judge, have all the facts. If you don't have all the facts, don't judge. People in society judge these these young men, and they didn't have all the facts. They had none of the facts, as a matter of fact. And don't think just because DNA testing is better now, DNA testing is more up to par, that this can't happen. This can absolutely happen. Hell, I believe the Tupac rape charges were false. I mean, excuse me, ape charges were false. Uh, you know, with in his case, you know what I mean. So don't be so quick to believe. I know the story is like, oh, believe women no matter what. You don't know. People can lie. People can make stuff up. People are just devious sometimes with shit like that. With shit like this. So anyway, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Congratulations to Yusuf Islam. You know, I mean, I'm Yusuf Salam. He in the interview he said that he's going to do a lot for Harlem, and Harlem does need that change because gentrification is killing communities out there, historical communities, like he said in the interview, that have lived there since the Harlem Renaissance. Um, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the Harlem Councilman. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to see when my next video is coming out. Love you guys.